Hey you guys, I wanted to do a video on the Bighorn Mountain crack. There's been a lot of speculation about the crack, and there's also been a lot of misinformation about the crack. The crack was discovered on a private property near the foothill of the Bighorn Mountains, and it's a very large crack. It's 750 feet long and about 50 feet wide, so it's a bit more like a canyon as opposed to a crack. And if you look at the pictures, it's quite large. There were a lot of theories about how the crack formed. The most popular one is that there was some type of earthquake in the region that actually tore apart a valley. And a lot of channels were accusing the USGS of hiding their data on the earthquakes that have been happening in the region, specifically earthquakes that are around the Yellowstone Caldera, obviously a very volatile region. Does a crack of this size have to be related to an earthquake, or can this be something else? Is the USGS really hiding earthquake data, as I believe they have done in the past? Well, if we look at the information available online, it does not have to be the case that a crack of this size or a crack in the earth is related to an earthquake, and that might actually surprise you. But if you do your research on volcanoes and calderas, you'll actually find that these types of cracks can be related to something called ground deformation. This does not require an earthquake to take place in order to see a crack of this size or even maybe bigger. So what happens is that the volcano or the caldera changes shape, it swells in certain areas, it collapses in other areas, and they actually monitor the ground surrounding the caldera and on top of the caldera in order to tell how much ground deformation is occurring. That gives them an indication of what's happening underneath the ground. So I actually believe that the USGS knows about this crack. I believe it's related to ground deformation, not an earthquake. What's interesting is that the USGS has highly advanced technology in monitoring ground deformation. They have radars that actually let them know where there's been a major shift in the land, like this crack. So again, I'm not saying that the other channels are wrong in believing that it's related to an earthquake. I just am pitching another idea that this might not be related to an earthquake, but is equally as concerning as an earthquake happening in the region, because this level of ground deformation might actually give us an indication of what's happening under the ground, and the fact that there could be a swelling in this caldera that could be very alarming. So I sent an email to the USGS to understand what could possibly be happening in this region, and to my surprise, one of their scientists responded. I asked him about seismic activity and the potential that the Bighorn crack could be related to an earthquake. He said the following: changes in the Bighorn Mountains are very unlikely to have anything to do with the volcano caldera at Yellowstone. They are too far apart. In a non-volcanic area, cracks most usually open up due to slumping, landslides, or gravity. As such, cracks could open up without earthquake seismicity. I'm not familiar with the specific location you're referring to, so I cannot say more. Cracks can occasionally open up due to earthquakes, but usually the earthquakes have to be rather large, M5 or more. I would not expect cracks to open up due to small earthquakes unless they are very, very shallow and somewhat numerous. If an earthquake had caused this large of a crack, it likely would have had to register at M5 or greater, or have been superficial enough to be felt by everybody in the region. To my knowledge, I have yet to find a testimony that an earthquake in the region was felt and could have caused this crack. As far as it being a landslide or slumping in the ground, it seems unusual considering the Bighorn Mountains are just outside the perimeter of the caldera. While the scientist thinks Yellowstone and the crack are unrelated, I think very well that these two could be related and should be investigated.